Shumai guys, welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. I'm your host, Dafydd Morse, and I'm having some time off during August to travel to France with my family. I'm planning to enjoy the boulangerie lifestyle, enjoying the French bread and patisserie and the cheese and the wine. I'm a big fan of designing your life the way you want, and encourage everyone to take steps towards making a month-long reset a reality. It takes questioning the norm for your life and asking, how can I do this? Rather than thinking, that could never happen. So what steps do you need to take so that your finances, work situation and family responsibilities can cope with a month unplugged? Whilst I'm away, I still want to bring you podcast episodes, so we're diving into the archives so that you can continue to be encouraged. Today we go way back to episode 7 for an interview with Andy Chevalier. The question of how we interpret story and what do we do with facts is as important now as it was back in 2020. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to make the most of your time here on Earth. My name's Dafydd Morse, I'm your host, and today is a very special day. Today is our first ever interview episode. I interview a friend of mine, Andy Chevalier, as an actor, a father, a husband, storyteller, and he's got some great wisdom. We get into all sorts of things, from the importance of story to sacrifices that we've made and choices that we've made that have led us to live the lives that we do. The importance of those choices. I do apologise, I wasn't in my normal studio when I recorded this episode. Andy was in his recording studio, so the sound is much better, and fortunately for you, most of the talking is Andy anyway. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Usually I hear people say, when they have podcast guests on, they say, oh, before we started recording, I just did a sound check and I asked my guest what they had for breakfast. And that's a good way to get started.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll definitely come back to that. First of all, let me say that's a fine haircut you're sporting. Right, breakfast. I had a banana and date smoothie, which I had after my exercise this morning.
After your exercise, is that part of your morning routine?
That is part of my morning routine. Dafydd, this is something you put me onto. It's part of my miracle morning routine after reading the book that you got taken with. So did you lend me the book or did you just put me onto the book? Anyway,
no, I just put you onto it because I only had the Kindle version.
I now do a bespoke miracle morning, which is a bit of reading, and then up for exercise, and then ideally before the kids are up, and then we're back in and get breakfast and get the day going.
Have you cut out certain parts of the miracle morning?
I haven't done the affirmations and visualizations and scribing for a long time, just because I find it hard to fit it all in before the kids are up. Welcome
everybody who's listening. I've got a special guest on today. My special guest today is my good friend, Andy Chevalier. Andy's a great friend of mine. He is an inspiration in many ways to me. He's a wonderful father, wonderful husband, wonderful storyteller. I want to get into that today. He's been such an inspiration to me in my life for many, many reasons. And I'm just keen to get Andy on the show to listen to see how he goes about living life to the full and what it means to him and some of the things that get him ticking, and maybe even you can take some tips away for yourself. So Andy, with that introduction, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Lovely to be with you, Dav. Any excuse to chat to you is always a bit of fun.
So Andy, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do, why are you so good at it, What's your story that's brought you up to this point in your life?
My story started in two ways at the age of 11. Right, age of 11 was when I first made a commitment to the Christian faith and to have a relationship with Jesus. And then also I did a school play when I was 11, and I decided I was going to be an actor thereafter. So everything else since that point was geared around attempting to become an actor, which I have increasingly found is more difficult than I first thought. And I went to university and studied drama, which is absolutely not what you're supposed to do if you want to become an actor. I should have just gone to drama school straight away, but I didn't know that because, I didn't come from a family of actors or anything like that. So my parents had no idea kind of, which way to steer me or guide me. And I mean, guidance counselling at my school was pretty much just avoid prison. And so I thought I'd managed to do that, which I have, but
Success so far.
Success so far. So we met at university, you and I, and then I stayed in Canterbury where we were at university for about 5 years after my drama degree. And then I went to drama school. And then I had a lovely year at drama school, and then had quite a good few years after drama school in doing lots of kind of theatre shows. I got in with a great theatre company that were doing regular work in London and occasionally touring. And then I fell into another theatre company that did 2 tours a year. And for about 2 to 3 years, I could basically map my year ahead around the different theatre shows that I knew I would roughly be involved in. And that was lovely. And then I had children, and then it all changed. And so while I had young kids, I knew that I didn't want to be touring. I didn't want to be away for long spells of time. And so I built a voiceover studio. When I was at university doing my degree was 4 years. And in the 4th year, you specialised. And I specialised in radio drama, where I learned all the kind of where I learned all the technical side, and obviously where we worked together quite a lot, as you were one of the lead characters.
I was one of the lead characters in your radio drama.
Well, it was a really special time. We all really enjoyed that. We had a great time doing that, and so I always knew I had. Obviously, at drama school, you get a lot of vocal training. At university, I got a lot of the kind of tech side of the training, and so I always knew that was a possible avenue for me. And then home studio has become much more a thing in the last few years. So for about 5 or 6 years, I've been doing that now. And then COVID hit and the world ended, and the acting profession, is still basically closed down unless you're doing an advert, which, let's be honest, no one went to drama school to do an advert. So very little of worth out there at the moment, as we currently speak in England's lockdown too.
Wales not in lockdown at the moment. Yeah, you've been quite the opposite to me in many ways. You've been single-minded in your vision for being an actor and following your dream and your desire to do something that has been on your heart since 11 years old, whereas I just jump on the next bandwagon for the next big thing as soon as the novelty of one thing wears off. Which is
probably in about 3 months you'll be the most successful actor I know.
So has the acting industry all gone to voiceover? How's the voiceover been in the last few months with COVID and all that?
I mean, every actor now has their own home studio. I've helped several actors. I've helped you build their own home studios and tell them what to get and how to put it together. I think the where I have a slight edge is that I know the kind of technical side. I think every actor sort of feels like, I could just do voiceover, and it's not that straightforward, but with a bit of training, it's totally doable. So there's a lot of I was fortunate that I was established with people that I've worked with and been working with me recurringly, over the last 6 years, and so I'm fortunate that I'm more established than other people. But yes, voiceover is big business at the moment. Theatre is very non-existent business. TV and film, they're working out how to get back into that quite successfully, I think. And then advert world, I mean, it's Christmas time, it's kind of thriving really, but you do notice like Christmas time, so you're seeing lots of Christmas ads that are all kind of animations, whereas before they would have been people, but it's a way of doing it that is socially distanced and safe.
And is great for a voice actor because they need voices.
Yeah, it's great for a voice actor. That's not the sort of voice work I would regularly do. I've done a couple of ads, but you got often that will come through a voice agent, and I don't have a voice agent. I do it all through different online platforms. I do it myself. So the big money stuff I don't tend to see. I do more piddly sort of money, but regular amounts of it.
Regular amounts of piddly money means that,
Exactly.
you're making a living out of doing something you enjoy doing.
Yeah, it keeps my parents keeps my kids and their parents fed, which is, that's all we can ask for at the moment.
Absolutely. And you've encouraged me to develop more of a side hustle in terms of a voiceover career. I haven't got the patience to stick to just focusing on voiceover, but it has been a great little experience for me just to hear my own voice, bringing the energy to the situation. And I've really appreciated, all the support that you've given me. I've done a lot of work.
Very good. When was your last job?
I did a job, just a small job last week. Yeah, it's part of an ongoing thing. So I've got a client who is the middleman between me and Disability Wales. So I'm doing a lot of work for Disability Wales at the moment. So explain a video.
Right.
And yeah, it's great.
That's great. That's really good. The thing I find frustrating about it, the thing I find really difficult is that it's a sole endeavor. And so, often you and I working with the companies we work with, we just work with kind of an interface and a platform. You read the script, you upload the recording, you don't actually deal with people. And I'm massively geared towards creative collaboration and working with people on creative things. And so this helps me to have a income stream that is very flexible and very built around, my commute is walking down my back staircase into my garden, and it's very convenient and a way that I can earn more money than I could elsewhere. But I find it massively, lonesome, that it would be much better for me if it was when I do get to work with other people on voice jobs, which happens from time to time. I get, we do live directed sessions and that sort of stuff. I much more enjoy those when you're getting feedback and able to tailor your performance and that sort of stuff.
Obviously, storytelling is a big part of your job. I remember sitting with you and you kind of coached me through doing a demo for my voiceover stuff. And you were able to just bring out a story just from like a few lines of text about Welsh lamb. And I was like, how does he do that? How does he build that story? And so that's obviously been a part of something that you've done for many, many years, creating a story around a script or whatever you've got. How does being a storyteller help you in your day-to-day life outside of work?
Well, you've just done it, right? You just told you're asking me a question, and to frame that question, you told a story about how I got you to reveal a story within the reading you were doing.
That's very meta.
And story is how we understand the world around us. That's how we understand our place in the world. It's how we say, do you know what? I want to be like that guy, or I definitely don't want to be like that. It's how we say, we work out what our principles are. I think, for you and I, churchgoers, I think there is much more understanding we can come to about why Jesus did all his teaching in stories.
And I remember you telling me that Jesus did his storytelling, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should start telling stories more in my life.
And it's why movies are big business. It's because we want to know we're like the goodie or we're like the baddie, or it's how we understand our place in the world. And we do it all the time. We tell a story to each other to say either I've been through a rough time, and here's how you know I've been through a rough time. I was screwed over by a garage I took my car to 2 weeks ago. That's a true story for me. We work out where we're at, how we understand each other, how we relate to each other through telling each other stories, and we do it all the time. Storytelling, I think, it's significant, not just in sort of our understanding, but it's how we want to position ourselves in life. And there's a fantastic book called, I always get the title slightly wrong, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, by a guy called Donald Miller. And it's a guy who wrote some essays about things he was thinking about in life. They weren't narratives. They didn't have a beginning, middle, and end. They were just kind of essays on his thoughts of life in a book called Blue Light Jazz. And then he was asked by somebody, by filmmakers, they said, we want to turn these section of essays into a film. And we want to make a film about your life. And when they came to actually write the film, they basically had to disregard the real life Donald Miller and build a fictional one, because essentially his life wasn't interesting enough to be put on film. So although they wanted the philosophies from the essay, they didn't want the character of the real Donald Miller. They wanted this fictional guy. And through that, and this book, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, he thinks about what are the fundamental parts of story, and how can I live a more meaningful life if I live a more meaningful story? Because he realized his story, his own personal testimony of who he wasn't interesting enough for other people. And so he wanted to live a personal story that was more interesting. And I think I would like to do that too. I would like to live a more meaningful story in my life.
Fantastic. I am jumping on the story bandwagon, partly because you have been an inspiration to me with your storytelling. I think if I'm going to have an impact on the world, then knowledge and facts and saying things like it is only get you so far. And connecting with people on a story, emotional level, for somebody like me who's not particularly emotional, I like the facts, I like rationality, I like thinking, well, that's ridiculous, why would you do that? Because mathematically you should do this. My brain's wired kind of in a mathematical way, but realizing that other people aren't like me, Andy. And
no,
not many people are like me. Connecting with people on an emotional level is actually really, really important if you're going to impact lives.
Yeah, and we've just seen it on a mass scale. So if you take away facts and you tell a story that this election has been rigged by voter fraud, without any facts, you don't need any facts. Yeah. The story is enough to cause rioting, the story alone.
Yeah.
And you've got somebody with a big enough megaphone saying, we've been cheated out of an election, and that just telling that story has emotionally connected with, well, some proportion of that 74 million that voted for that man. And so, and that is enough to stir them to action. That's incredible.
Yeah.
They've completely let go of any facts. There's no facts involved in that. There's just story. And that has caused people to brandish guns and caused people to go out marching and on streets and all that sort of stuff. It's amazing what story can do.
Yeah. So much more than facts. Like you say, you don't need facts.
Yeah.
And story changes people beyond what facts do.
On that, on Netflix, there's this documentary at the moment called The Social Dilemma, and it's a really interesting look at what social media is doing to us as individually and as a society. One of the stats it puts in there is a false story, fake news, is 6 times more likely to be shared than real news. Wow. So actually, facts get in our way.
Yeah.
If you want something to be shared and connected with and cause a response, you just need a sensationalist story, or you just need a story that's going to ping interest. And unfortunately for us right now, where we've got a kind of paper industry that's dying and has been dying for a long time, paper journalism, you've got things like Twitter, you've got Instagram, you've got ways of communicating that, or you've got Facebook that don't need to be by qualified journalists or people coming in. you've got newspapers competing with Twitter headlines. And so half the time, newspapers are just trying to grab a sensationalist headline to try and get you hooked in to click, because that click gets them the ad, gets them the story. So it doesn't really matter if the story is true. It's devaluing truth across our society. So I guess for you and I, who do believe truth is important, then telling stories that stir people to good is a really worthwhile endeavor to pursue.
Yeah, devaluing truth. I mean, that is profoundly wise, Andy, and it's something that we should.
And terrifying, right?
Terrifying. Yeah, I think it's something that we desperately need to fight against. I was listening to another podcast by Paula Pant, Afford Anything, and she was interviewing a economist, Dan Ariely, and he's a famous economist, behavioral economist, and he was basically saying knowledge and facts don't make people do the right thing. Knowledge and facts don't cause action in a positive way. But gosh, I really need to think about how I connect with people. Obviously, if we believe in truth, then presenting truth somehow in a way which connects with people and that people can see truth is something that we need to really take on board and consider and take action on.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, we've touched a little bit on some of the philosophies that have shaped your life. You said early on, age 11, you gave your life to Jesus and decided to become an actor. So go a little bit into detail about what are some of the philosophies and thoughts that have shaped the way that you live your life.
Gosh, that's interesting. Even after what we've just been talking about, I think part of the reason I'm still attempting to be an actor is because of the strong story I told myself when I was 11 that I was going to be an actor. I think if I told myself a different story at that point, that I was going to be an actor, or I was going to be a fireman, or I probably would be doing something else that would be much more lucrative than acting right now. But it's interesting that even the story we tell ourselves is really important, and that doesn't have to bear any relation to fact. I can say to myself, I'm going to be an actor, without having any understanding of how competitive it is and how difficult it is and what my chances are. I can just kind of reaffirm that story to myself, and it can lead you to a lifestyle that then you've got to live with. These kind of big decisions that you kind of live with. But I think for me, philosophies that have shaped me, I think two I've realized recently that have kind of truly shaped me, and I'm slightly, because now I've recognized them, I want to rebel against them. So I think I inherited from my dad a sense that success is synonymous with cheating or selfishness, or that if anybody was kind of like really wealthy in their job, it probably meant that they didn't spend enough time with their family. If anybody was really revered, it probably meant that they wanted the attention too much. That there's all these negative connotations with success, and I'm only just kind of picking that up in myself, how the decisions that I've made in my life, I would steer clear of the limelight, which seems like a strange thing for an actor to say, but I wouldn't want kind of a personal spotlight shone on me, and so I think that has made me probably not that there's a lot of self-promotion you probably should do to be a successful actor, and I think I would steer very much clear of that self-promotion, and therefore that has probably caused me to be not as successful as I could have been. So that's one thing that I'm sort of like, I think there's good value in that. There's some bad stuff in that. What, as an adult, do I think is important about that? What do I want my kids to pick up from that? The second philosophy is one that has become really relevant to me in the last 18 months, because I realized I'd carried around a lot of guilt for not earning as much money as I could, because I think that that probably advertising and the amount of adverts I've seen in my life as a child, as an adult, increasing, once you would just see adverts on TV or on billboards, and now you see them kind of as you're scrolling through your phone or an Instagram feed or whatever. You see adverts all the time telling you that if you want to be happy or you want to have status, you need this product. And to have this product, you need to have money. And so your money and your status are intrinsically linked. And I think for a long time, I felt guilty because I was choosing a profession whereby I was shunning quite a lot of the privilege just by being a white middle-class man born in the UK, in the time, born in the 1980s, all that stuff that should afford me. I've kind of shunned that to be a unknown actor that, loves what I do when I get to do it. But I just have to apologize for the knocking that's right outside my door now. As I said before, my neighbour's having a new bathroom fitted. I've shunned lots of money for the sake of pursuing a dream that is nigh on impossible. And I think I only just realized about 18 months ago, do you know what? Life's not about earning as much money as you can. And I know that can sound really obvious. I think we all there's probably most of us would agree with that. But in reality, I think most of us live like we should be earning as much as we possibly can. And that is kind of a barometer of success or status, or whether you've made the most of your education, or whether you've made, whether you've got meaning, whether you're worthwhile is based on kind of, are you raking it in, or are you scraping by, or are you massively in debt? And I think I realized, do you know what? The kind of important thing is that there is a lot of love in our household, and there is the practical things we need: food, toilet roll, the things you need to survive, and those two things.
Yeah.
And then
food and toilet roll, you'll be fine.
And anything else is a bonus. And so I think me and my wife took a decision where we would be more time rich for the hope of better, stronger relationships within our family. And that might make us a bit more cash poor, but we would choose the relationship over the money. So I think that is a philosophy that is very much shaping the decisions we're making at the moment. But I would say that is a hard road to keep walking down, because every now and then, especially when it comes to Christmas or when it comes to, you want to buy your kids, bigger presents, better presents than you can probably do it. And it'll be really nice to have those little treats that you once could have before you had kids, or, whatever it is. It feels like a real discipline to keep walking down that road of prioritizing relationships over cash.
Yes, one of the things that I've looked at in the first few episodes of this podcast, the 5 things that we focus our energy on are financial health, relational health, physical health, mental health, and our spiritual health. And how actually we have the scale the wrong way round. We focus so much of our energy on the financial side of things to the detriment of other things. And we realize that actually is the least important one. And we spend so little time thinking about the spiritual side of things. But if there is anything beyond our earthly existence, which you and I believe that there is, then that has the utmost importance to be considering, and it's the one that we spend the least time considering.
Yeah, and it's really hard because money makes our world go round. The philosophy behind that is deeply, deeply flawed. I remember Russell Brand did a great podcast on where he was talking about capitalism and how capitalism is designed to break. So everything you buy, your fancy iPhone that you fork out money for, is designed to break. Nothing is designed with the purpose of lasting, because otherwise they can't get you to buy another one. And so when I realized that, I'm like, yeah, man, that is sickening. And when you kind of bring into the knock-on of what that does to the environment and throwing away the culture we got of just lobbing stuff away. And interestingly, for us that believe in the Christian narrative, that once there was a man who was perfect he was perfect in front of God, and there was the fall, and now there is redeemed man through Jesus. I love the idea of redeeming things. I love it when my products start to fall apart and I can fix them or restore them to being like new again. I love kind of giving extra life to stuff that probably most people just want to chuck away. Like I've got this you probably can't tell, a Philips beard trimmer, and right now the rechargeable battery in it is dying and it is plucking the hairs out of my chin. It's the most painful experience. Now that is designed for me to then go and buy my next beard trimmer. That's the way it's designed.
Yeah.
There's no way into that product, but I'm going to figure out a way of breaking into that product and replacing the battery, because that's all it needs. It doesn't need this piece of kit to be chucked out and landing and be in landfill or whatever. It needs a replacement battery. And so, it's that sort of stuff that, is right in line with our Christian philosophy of redeemed man is better than perfect brand new man.
Yeah. That story of being in God's presence and then falling and being away from God's presence, and then Jesus coming and rescuing man. It's like the ultimate story. It is the best story that could ever be told. And yeah, it's wonderful to be mixed up in that, caught up in the plan of salvation.
But that story is the antithesis of the capitalist system, which is you buy and you chuck and you buy and you chuck and you buy and you chuck.
Yeah.
So it got for me growing up with this philosophy of you got to make as much money as you can, it's because it is constantly reinforced in the world I live in. And you and I know that we are being countercultural by people that have left secure jobs. I could if I had stayed where I was working, I could have paid off my student loan. I could have a really healthy pension pot behind me, growing all the time. I could have a much more kind of comfortable retirement than the one I'm probably going to have if I didn't buck the trend, if I just kind of sat still doing what I was doing. And at some point I'll figure out why I didn't just do that.
Yeah, it's interesting chatting to my family about these things, how I've grown up with a philosophy of money from them. Just use all the money that you've got to bless and serve other people, and then getting towards retirement age and thinking, actually, I'm gonna have to keep working a bit longer.
Wow.
So you and I have taken slightly different routes than the traditional. I was talking to my brother about this. My brother also has been an actor like you. He did go to drama school, and he went to Central School of Speech and Drama in London when he was 18 years old, and then spent the next 8-9 years, did some theatre work. But like you, when he had kids, he decided that he couldn't go up on a Sunday night and then come back after the Saturday matinee and get home Saturday evening and then just being at home for 24 hours and then going back up to do his theatre work. So he went to do the teacher route then, and I've kind of flip-flopped. And I've done teaching for 14 years. I like to say I've retired now, and it's because I was fairly responsible financially for 14 years. And now I get to play the game where I can not earn so much money temporarily to do something that I love to do, have a great time doing it, and try and figure out the money side of things as we go along. And it's just interesting. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of flip-flopped and did the opposite. So he's spent the first kind of 12 years of his life after uni trying to not earning enough, and then having to go to get a real job and I did it having a real job and then quitting.
And I wonder what sense of calling, being in the right place,
Hmm.
that we have, because I know you never enjoyed teaching. That was never you were never passionate about it. I feel like instinctively, gut feeling, I'm doing the right thing. And when I've had other opportunities to be employed elsewhere and give up acting and earn a reasonable amount of money, and I've always felt like that's the wrong thing for me to do. And I do wonder whether part of that is not because it was right or wrong, but because I told myself such a strong story from the age of
Hmm.
11 that if I was going to abandon that story, I didn't quite know what that said about me. So there may be that involved, or it may be that I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing, even though that is, financially challenging.
Right, last question, Andy. What does living life to the full mean to you?
It just means living the most meaningful life you can live. But I don't think I'm doing that. I don't think that I am. I don't think I'm living life to the full. I don't think a lot of that is in my control. So I am. I do the best I can to focus on the things that I think I should be focusing on each day. Some days are better than others. I found lockdown 2 incredibly, or the restrictions coming into the winter with the second wave, incredibly frustrating. I feel like my life is far too domestically focused. The fact that, my house and my job are literally linked. When I go upstairs, I have to deal with the dripping tap, and that's basically all I've got going on. I desperately miss kind of London town, going to the theatre, going for a night out, seeing friends, I live in Brixton, and Brixton's got some great kind of restaurants and places to go. All of that is, at the moment, is completely dormant to me. And so I feel like I'm living life the least full I've lived it for a long time. But I think the idea of living life to the full is living life with a lot of significant meaning. And I don't know how many people in my life I'm going to touch. I don't know how many people in my life are going to really care about my existence at all. I know if I drop down dead, then the acting industry wouldn't mourn a jot. They wouldn't even notice. Friends and family would be sad. The only ones whose life would be turned upside down are my wife and 2 children. They're the only ones that my life has significant meaning to. It would be lovely if my life had significant meaning to other people, but it may never do. I don't really get to control that. I get to kind of pursue the things I think I'm meant to be pursuing, and hopefully that has meaning to other people. Hopefully it has meaning to me, but yeah, I don't get to control it.
Very interesting. Well, Andy,
What does it mean to you?
to me, I guess with a spiritual focus, living life to the full means doing everything that I feel God's calling me to do. And yeah, like you know, what you called to do and living that out. And one of the things that I find incredibly fun about life is trying to figure that out. And maybe I don't spend enough time doing one thing to actually ever figure it out. But it's a fun process of, for me, jumping around projects. And yeah, I get a immense amount of satisfaction in life from knowing that I am completely and utterly forgiven and saved. Nothing that I do has any bearing on taking that away. So I have that security of eternal life. And yeah, just trying to communicate that to as many people as I can, share that with as many people as I can. One of the things I feel is within me is, at heart, I am a teacher. And I did that for 14 years in a classroom. And I never really loved it. like you said. And I didn't hate it. It was fine, but
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
trying to find a different avenue for that teaching heart that I have.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I get an immense amount of pleasure from learning something and then showing somebody else and then seeing them do the thing that I've taught them, whether it's bread baking, whether it's remortgaging their house so that they can buy some rental properties, or whatever it is. I have that. I love that feeling of that person's life has changed in a positive
Yeah.
way. Even now, my brother-in-law drinks cold brew coffee. How good
And
is
that's your
that?
influence, is it?
Yeah. I spent a week away with him in the summer and said, "Yeah, this is going to change your life." And he said, "Small change, but yes, it has changed my life." See,
Very
I
good.
derive an immense amount of pleasure from that. And if I can do it on a bigger scale than 1 to 30, then that'd be great.
Yeah. And I think when you're talking theologically, if you're talking about what Jesus meant when he said, "I've come that they may have life and life to the full," I think it's just simply about us becoming more Christ-like. I think it's going to be a lifelong process of of in, enjoying life to its fullness increasingly throughout your life. If we're developing our relationship with Jesus and our understanding on who he is, then I and that who we are, we should be kind of enjoying a fullness of life increasingly as we get older. I think C.S. Lewis said if we saw our future eternal selves, we'd be in danger of worshipping them because they would look, so utterly different to who we are as we become more and more like Christ. And so I think that's the goal, is that we kind of keep pressing on, and that doesn't promise anything that secularly living life to the full would suggest, which is kind of, jumping out of airplanes and um, or like having loads of money or enjoying these wild experiences. Um, Life to the full is going to be a very, very different thing to that, I imagine. And so, yes, I am also enjoying exploring that. I'll let you know in 40, 50 years where we come out.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get to 102. I'm hoping that Rachel can get to 102 as well so that we can celebrate our 80th wedding anniversary. That'd be
Oh,
good.
mate, I'm starting extreme sports at 65. You know that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get a cult of people that are gonna go out in a blaze of glory because I don't really want to get too old.
fair enough. Fair enough. I've written here, what are some of the books that have had the biggest impact on you? And you said Room on the Broom.
And that was a joke.
Great. So what books have had the biggest impact on you?
Well, I think if you're talking outside of the Bible, obviously, then I think that book, um, A Million Years, no, A Million Miles
Million
in a
Miles,
Thousand
a
Years.
Thousand Years. I wrote that down.
Yeah, by Donald Miller. That has been excellent. Another one I've read recently was A Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch, and that one talks a lot about us becoming more creators than consumers, and I think that is a massive challenge for people for all of us. How do we create more than we consume and create good more than we consume?
Please say The Miracle Morning.
I'm trying. Oh yeah, Miracle Morning was excellent.
Yeah.
Miracle Morning was a real turning point, a real change to our new way of life. Miracle Morning was really helpful.
Sorry, from a selfish point of
What?
view. From a selfish point of view, what
Go
I
on.
love about that is I recommended this book to you because I'd been reading it and following the advice, and you've taken my advice, and it's been a real game changer
I mean, you're literally
for
putting words in my
you.
mouth there, but sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, it has been part of. We went through a big transition around how we looked at our finances, how we structured our weeks, how we structured our work. Miracle Morning was a part of that. It wasn't the kind of. It wasn't everything about that. It was just how we structured our Miracle Mornings. But still, yes, it was very good. And then there's Pete Gregg's books on prayer have been really good. How to Pray was one I read. Another one I read this year that has been really formative and continues to be so. So there are a few of the books. I'm sure there's others, but yeah.
Lovely. Right, well, Andy, thanks very much for being the first guest on my podcast.
My pleasure.
It's always wonderful to chat to you. And just to encourage you, I've already said it, but you have had a big impact on my life too, and you continue to do so. You continue to inspire me with the way that you parent and the way that you are a husband, and your desire to honor your wife and put your wife first is really something that I really take seriously and want to action on a lot more as I go on to the next month in my life.
The next wife. That's kind of you to say. We didn't talk at all about parenting. I mean, again, you can edit this out, but there's probably quite an interesting conversation to have about around parenting, I imagine. But yes,
I'll get you back on to talk
there
about parenting.
Yeah, we should do that at some point.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Lots of love, bro.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So that was my interview with Andrew Chevalier. So much wisdom, so much stuff to take away. I hope you join us next time on the Life to the Full podcast. Peace out.